There we go. Start recording. Very good. Oh, we can go into, where is it? Theater mode. There we go. Hi everyone, welcome to today's non-exclusive live. We're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And if you want to talk God, then that would be fun too. I need to get my headphones in. Okay, now let's pray to the TikTok gods that this doesn't cause an audio glitch, like it sometimes does. Hello, can you hear me? I have a guest in the box, but I can't hear them. Hello, what's your name? INVCRE V in something. Invery something. We can hear you. Good, thank you. Good to know. Guest, if you're there, I can't hear anything. I'm gonna give you 5 seconds. And you're gonna get the boot. 3 seconds, the boot is coming. No, I can't hear you. I'm gonna kick you out and come back. Try again. My volume's up. Hello everyone, welcome. We're just getting started. I'm gonna invite INV because they were the first in line and I couldn't hear them at all. So we're gonna try again. What's on your mind, everyone? Happy Saturday to wherever you are. I hope today is warmer where you are than it is here in Maine. It's friggin' cold out, bub. Jesus Christ, it's cold. Send you $1 million, but first you have to find me. Planet Earth? Does that count? The interwebs? Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, I can hear you nice and clearly. What's on your minds today?
Well, you posed this question, is God real? And I just feel like I should come in and maybe give my perspective, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. So, what's your best claim or evidence, or do you have one? What's on your mind?
Well, I don't. I suppose it's all anecdotal. It just comes from my younger days when I okay. So I guess I got to preface. Hi, I'm the devil, and I used to work for God. So he is real. I can tell you that. Um, but he's not very nice, and you shouldn't worship him. But that's
But how do you know God is real? I need some good arguments or explanation or evidence before I'm going to accept your claim that God is real.
no, I totally get it. I do. Um, I know that he's real because I'm like I said, I used to work for him. He does not give good healthcare benefits. I can tell you that. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so I just, you know what? Just lean into the arms of logic and reason and enjoy life. That's my suggestion.
Amen. All right, any final thoughts before I go to the next guest?
Um, Spread kindness.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, be well. All right, the guest box is open. I thought there was someone waiting, but they are no longer. Come on in. Let's have a chat. I want to figure out if God is real. I want to believe as many true claims as possible, right? I want to reject as many false claims as possible. So if your claim is God is real and you believe that to be true, then I want to believe as well if there's sufficient evidence or reason. Sublime rhyme. Hello.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon. I just wanted to come in and say, Hail the Almighty Lisa. May leaf be upon her.
Ramen. Sublime is probably one of my top 10 favorite bands. Definitely. If I could only put 10 albums or artists in a collection and be stuck on a desert island for the rest of my life, I think Sublime would be in the top 10.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. Again, praise be to Lisa. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Leaf be upon her.
Leaf be upon her.
At least we have pictures of Lisa. Maybe I'll change the background in a minute. We'll show the glorious pictures of Lisa, the rainbow giraffe. Hello.
Hello.
What's on your minds
Good
today?
to see you again. Um, Same thing as usual, I suppose. Consciousness, because I think that's where mind comes from.
I dig it. Yep, I agree with you. So, what is
And
consciousness and where does it come from exactly? Do you want to elaborate a little more?
now, where it comes from is a higher dimension of understanding that I don't claim to have. But in this three-dimensional world, I think our consciousness is split up into our conscious attention and our subconscious programming from our environment and life that we've lived, however we've been taught and trained to be. But I do think there's sufficient evidence now that there's a field of energy that connects all things that is infinitely powerful. Now, I don't think it's a guy in a cloud that makes rules and that tells people what to do or how to live. I think it's an infinitely powerful field of energy that when you're conscious of it, using your conscious creative mind, you have the power of God within you, like in your being, in your focus of your attention and creative ability. But I think a lot of the subconscious programming we receive from either screens or the machine or our systems that get us indoctrinated to believe a certain thing or act a certain way or buy a certain thing or have a certain thing or get a certain thing distracts us from our true power of creative consciousness we have within.
I think. Okay, I want to dive into what is infinite power and how you can demonstrate that we all tap into it somehow. But first, I just want to say that I think what's holding us back from our true creative potential is the restraints of the economic system we work in, the rules we put on ourselves, the the intellectual breaks that certain philosophies or religions put on us. I think we are confining ourselves through all these tricks and rules and games in order to gain power and money and influence. And yeah, I could only dream of a
100%
more
agree.
more productive, kinder, happier worlds to live in. Why can't we just get to Star Trek? All I want is Star Trek.
No kidding. I think we're headed there. It might be a long road because we've got to go through a whole layer of programming that, I mean, I was born in the country, so I grew up in like the what I thought to be the real world with like nature and animals. But then I went to the city and started working and I realized it was all about money for attention, for purchasing items and get this thing to have that thing, you got to get that thing, worry about this thing, fear that thing, and all that stuff got me sucked into the machine world. But I do believe
Me,
there is
yeah,
outside
me
of it.
too. I grew up in a forest. You know, it was a town. It's a small town. It's like 5 to 10,000 people, depending on the season.
Right.
Um, but then I moved to the city, and I experienced the same thing. It's a capitalistic hellscape that is intoxicating to too many.
Yeah, yes. What happened to me on that turn is I realized when I left the real world in the country and living in nature with animals, I realized it was all about money and attention, and you just had to go and work and give your attention to somebody, and if you're good at it, you got lots of money, and if you got lots of money, you could buy lots of stuff. And I thought that's what the happiness was then in the false matrix machine world. You just gotta like make a bunch of money and you'll be happy. And when I left high school, the oil field was booming. I live in Western Canada. So I went up north and I made a ton of money really fast working my butt off in the oil field. And it was like cold and hard work and long hours, whatever. But I got a lot of money, and I spent it all on fun. You name it, I did it. And my addiction was adrenaline. So I did like
Yeah.
jumping off, climbing. I was a solo certified skydiver. I started dirt biking and downhill mountain biking, and then I found street bikes, and I started stunting a couple of race bikes, and the adrenaline really got me hooked. And I thought, if all you need is stuff to be happy, I just bought the best stuff. I bought a brand new truck, a really nice pull trailer, motorbikes for me and my wife, and street bikes for me and my wife. And you know what? I didn't really find happiness. I was always seeking more and more and more and more. And the adrenaline addiction got the better of me until I was riding my motorcycle doing stupid stuff. And then I crashed it real bad and I died, but was miraculously saved by timing and people in the modern medical system and this amazing nurse who just happened to be driving home from work with her medical bag in her car and pulled over on the side of the road when I was dead and gave me some really good CPR for a while till the ambulance came.
Wow.
I've had some pretty good talks with her, and she was like, "We thought you were dead. Like you were dead, but we didn't think that you were going to make it." And I did. I'm a quadriplegic, C5 6 spinal cord injuries, and I blew
Oh
my hip
no.
through my blew my femur through my hip and ruptured my internal organs. It was a real mess. But for years, I've been working on that whole situation, and I'm still alive. My hands don't work, and I spend all my time in a wheelchair. But I was able to somehow marry a beautiful woman with 3 children, and now I'm learning about parenting. That's what I've been doing for the last 4 years, parenting from a wheelchair.
Wow. Well, good on you. I'm glad you survived, but that's a rough story. Um, I've been addicted to adrenaline too. You know, mountain climbing, a little bit of motorcycle riding, and I had an accident too. I
Oh,
was coming
really?
down this hill and I downshifted into first gear when I shouldn't have. It
Oh, concussion slide.
pressure locked the rear tire. The whole thing went sideways, and I broke my wrist, banged up my hand pretty bad, and I couldn't play guitar for a good 6 months. And that's when I realized, that's when I asked myself the question, would I rather play guitar or ride a motorcycle and threaten the rest of my health? And I decided to get rid of the motorcycle, and I'm glad I did.
Good for you.
But I'm sorry for your accidents and your troubles. But I'm awfully glad that you are here to share your story with us. Because
Awesome. Thanks so much. I really super appreciate that. I mean, I'm lucky to be alive, but if I had a time machine, honestly, I wouldn't go back. The
you
amount that I've learned and what I've received and achieved now from my wheelchair has led me to a whole greater understanding of reality and the purpose of life and the enjoyment and fulfillment and story that we can all tell ourselves to build ourselves into a character. Because I believe life on Earth as humans now is a kind of game that souls play. Do you believe in souls?
it's a kind of game that what souls play.
Souls, yeah. You believe in souls?
Interesting. No, I don't think that consciousness goes on after our physical bodies expire. But I do believe that there's something in us that is more than just the collection of all of the parts. You know, we have something that is you can't really quantify it, but we all know what it is. Most people would call it a soul or chi, chakras, energy, you know, like we've been talking about.
Yep.
But uh, it's just I don't know. I don't believe in anything without some kind of evidence. I just know that it's there, right? So that's I guess that's what I might consider a soul, but I don't believe that it again, I don't believe that it like leaves the body ever. It's physically part of us. It is bound by the constraints of our physical body.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool, but I feel like that limits the amount of learning that you could get because just say there's a soul and just say your soul is outside of your body. When you leave this body and enter a new body, then some of the learning can be passed on. And I like to think that because I like to think that we're here as souls learning for our own growth and maybe the growth of the intelligence of a god or of the god or of the source of all of existence.
There have been cultures in the past that used to eat the body parts of the deceased, thinking that they could absorb the knowledge and wisdom and souls. Turns out it was a terrible idea. Eating brain matter is full of all kinds of terrible things, chemicals, toxins, parasites, you name it. It's just bad, very, very bad.
Yeah. Yeah. When I came to after my coma, like the consciousness idea, like the fabric of the universe was pretty like clear in my mind at that time. So I started studying, and I thought, if like consciousness is part of like some structure of reality, then we should be able to find it or learn about it or know about it. And then I found the Large Hadron Collider, and they found an infinitely powerful field of energy that connects all things in the universe. And I thought, well, that's kind of close enough for me to feel like all of the religions have like this base core, and spirituality and the law of attraction and all like the modern ideas, they all come together on this one idea that there's an infinitely powerful field of energy that connects everything. And when science
Yeah,
found it, I thought, well,
I,
that's kind of a cool connection.
I'm not a physicist, so I can't really say one way or the other. My very little understanding of what the Hadron Collider is doing is just slamming atoms and particles together and see what sparks fly, and trying to capture that and quantify it and figure out what the Higgs boson is and why the strong nuclear what it does. But again, matter and energy are part of our reality, obviously. Space, time, matter, energy, it's all the building blocks that make us what we are. But I am an electrical engineer. That's what I studied in school. So I know
Yeah.
how to quantify electricity very well. I know about the different temperatures of lights, what the electromagnetic spectrum is. I've taken a lot of thermodynamics courses, but there's no such thing that I've ever seen that is like a unifying energy that somehow is the realm of the soul or yeah, it's the when we get into the conversation of woo magic stuff like that. I need to I need some peer reviewed articles before I accept any of that.
Okay, well, I'll go on just a little bit more with the Higgs boson, because
Sure.
the Higgs boson, in my understanding, is not like a particle. It's a particle connecting an entire field
Yeah, it's a
that
quantum field of basically a
mm,
ripple in the I don't know. It basically
like
is the strong nuclear force, right?
the
It's the stuff
fabric
that
of
brings stuff
everything.
together.
Yes, but as 'cause see if this is the one field and everything's just made of atoms, it's most of an atom is just the electron spinning around. And we don't even know where the electron is until we measure it. And it's only in the spot we measured it. So it
Right.
leaves a lot of space that is unaccounted for. But this electron moves, and as it moves in this field, the Higgs field, it has to exert a bit of energy and a force. And that force that it emits creates physical matter, creates physical properties. So, because of this field of energy, as the electron moves, it creates physical substance. So, every physical item in the universe exists physically because of this field. And I thought that was really cool. Like, everything exists because of this field. Is a really interesting unifying force for most of the beliefs or religions that I studied. All have a base core at the bottom. Everything exists because of a oneness.
Yeah, and I'll just riff on that for a second. I'll give you an opportunity to share a last thought, but I've got some more guests waiting. Um, if you want to, not you, but if anyone just wants to call that God, I have a problem with that. Let's call it the Higgs boson field or the strong nuclear force or whatever it is quantifiably, right? Because the moment we use the God word, now you're smuggling in all the other gods throughout antiquity that have nothing to do with the Higgs boson or the Hadron Collider, right? So our
100%
language
right.
matters. My point is language matters. All right, final thoughts. And please come back again and continue this another day.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that because I use the word God too loosely because it is connected to a whole other realm of thinking. So I instead use the word source, the source of energy that gives all of matter its properties.
Yeah, well, I can get behind that. Raw men.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much and for helping me like keep this conversation going because I think it's a really important one. Connecting science and spirituality and religion under one idea is it's a beautiful place that we're reaching in humanity.
Yeah, I just want to get to Star Trek. Whatever helps us get to Star Trek.
Yeah, yeah. Soon enough, man.
All
I
right.
seen some crazy robots on some videos the other day. Like it's getting wild fast.
Yeah. All right. Be well, friends. Talk
Awesome. Thanks
later.
so much, man. Take care.
Oh, Chelsea is here. Good, good. Uh-oh. She disappeared. She'll be back. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you? What's on your minds today?
Oh, doing all right. Live scrolling. Couple of
Yep.
things. Are you talking about God as in? Well, what is your definition of God? To say
I
is God real?
yeah, I'm waiting for a believer to share their definition, then we can talk about it because I don't believe there is such. All the claims of God so far have not demonstrated to me their usefulness or existence.
Right. So I'm kind of in the same boat with that. I'm also of the mindset if one God exists, then they all exist because you can only believe in God through faith, and people have faith in all different gods, all different deities, all different religions.
Is
So
that
you can't have
pantheism?
one without the other.
Pantheism. Is that called pantheism? I can't remember.
I'd
Shakespeare.
say
No.
pantheism is more of we don't know what God is, but God is more of like an energy that exists. There's no like one single source of God, I think, is
Oh,
pantheism.
yeah, it is. The second definition is worship and admits or tolerates all gods. So maybe you don't worship them all, but if you admit or tolerate the idea that all gods exist, then that is, I think, part of the definition of pantheism.
So I'm not a pantheist, but I would say if one God exists, then they would all exist. But I don't believe that any gods exist. I think God was a concept created by man for understanding explanation of things originally, like the polytheistic gods of, I use the Norse as a, common example because everyone seems to know Norse, looking at why there is thunder and lightning and earthquakes. Well, there's the god Thor hammering Mjolnir on an anvil, causing the sparks and the thunder. That makes a lot of sense. Why is there earthquake? Because Jormungandr is circling the world, causing the earthquakes to happen. See, that makes sense. Um, Even the whole concept of how the Earth was formed with Ymir's head, the giant being destroyed by uh, Odin and his brothers, that's understandable where we have the skull, the brains, the all these different concepts. But again, these are all just theories that were created by early civilization that didn't quite understand science and didn't, have the full reasoning behind things.
Yeah, before the
So,
printing press, before scientific journals and the scientific review
right.
process. Right, early humans were scared and ignorant and they were anxious. They needed answers. Well, why is there lightning? Well, obviously it's Zeus and Thor's hammer. Isn't it obvious to you? Don't worry about it.
Right. And then,
Yeah.
we look at modern thinking, and then we start going into the monotheistic, especially the Abrahamic beliefs. And now all of a sudden, we are about being sheep. We are about being a flock to this shepherd. This dad that's never around, but we're supposed to listen to, we're supposed to believe. And for me, I've never been able to get behind that idea. I've never been able to get behind this, mythical sky daddy that, knows all, sees all, knows, like, if God knows all, sees all, is all, then the so-called evils of the world is God's doing. And then you can't, blame another entity such as, Satan, which Satan just simply means the adversary, the opposer, the accuser. It's an antagonist-protagonist situation, and you can't have one without the other. So when it comes to, is God real, I would say it depends on what you define as God. And then you can even go even deeper. And I just finished reading American Gods by Neil Gaiman, which is a fantastic read, and talks about the old gods and the new gods. The new gods being technology, stone, wood. These concepts that take over the modern day civilization. I mean, we're on our phones. We are praying to the technology god at this point. We are implementing the technology god. So what
All
is God?
hail Jeff Bezos.
I mean, yeah, I got an Amazon account. I can't say I'm not. But
uh,
so that's the thing. So
what was the name of that book and author again?
American Gods by Neil Gaiman.
Gay or something else?
Uh Gai, I think.
I'll find it. American. What was it? American Gods.
American Gods.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I'll check that out.
So yeah, just
Have you?
whenever I see is God real, I have to ask the person, well, what do you define as God? Because based off of your definition, sure, there may be God could be real or not.
Have you ever looked into or thought about why apocalyptic gods are so popular?
Oh, sure. Um,
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
want to
think
riff
about
on
this
that for
way.
a minute?
Apocalyptic gods are fun because there's always going to be an end. Which I would say, even though the apocalyptic gods cannot escape death. Death is the final. Death is the absolute. Death comes for everything, even gods at some point.
Unavoidable.
Exactly. But yeah, I just wanted to pop in and say that. I didn't know where your stance was on that. But yeah, I'm still waiting for someone who believes in literal gods to be able to show me proof, or someone who just believes in Yahweh or whatever to prove to me that no other gods exist if Yahweh exists.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks a ton. Come back
All right,
again,
take
okay?
care.
So there are a few believers in the chat, I see, and I want you to pray to your God to give you the words that you can use to convince me. And come on in. We're friendly here. This is a safe space. You can share your thoughts on God and try to convince a non-believer like me. And I promise you, I am open to the arguments, the suggestion, the evidence. I want to see the evidence. I want to believe as many true claims as possible, while rejecting as many false claims as possible. That's my endeavor. And we were just talking briefly about apocalyptic gods. I think there's a hunger for them because we have this huge fight and flight response in our brain, and it's not being activated like it used to. So we come up with this ritual once a week, or sometimes more or less. You go to the building where the preacher fills you with fear, and you are wrong, and you are sinful, and you have to do these things to save your soul. It's an addiction.
How
Hello.
are you?
Good. How are you? What's on your minds today?
I'm doing good. I personally believe that God does exist, and one of my good reasons why I personally believe that is because, I personally think that everything out there has to have a reason behind it in order for us to exist. You know what I mean?
I understand the words that you're saying, but I don't agree with them. Can I share why?
Of course.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me ask it this way. Do you think it's possible that there are some questions that will never be answered?
Yes, I do think that it could be
Okay.
possible.
And do you think it's acceptable? Do you think it's okay to realize that and be comfortable in that fact? Or are you always going to be uncomfortable and anxious if you don't know the answer to a question?
I mean, it really depends on what it is.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, what about the origin of life?
Um, there could be different reasons why life itself exists. I mean, there is also something called the Big Bang, which even some believers think happened. But there could also be a reason why the Big Bang itself happened.
Yeah, sure, sure. But my question is it okay to be comfortable in accepting the idea, the premise, that we will never know? Or is it fundamentally important that we have an answer for the origin of life?
I mean, I think it's okay to feel comfortable either way. I mean, it doesn't really bother anyone to have their own opinions, preferences, and stuff because, for real, as long as we are alive, we will never really know what is the real reason why we exist.
Well, do you think it's possible that we could somehow figure out definitively, definitely with absolute or as close to absolute certainty as possible where or how life on Earth originated or came from or began?
Well, I mean, there's been times where even scientists have tried to like figure out how Earth itself was made. And there are
Yeah.
definitely different possibilities and stuff. I mean, scientists even say that the universe itself has already existed for like millions or billions of years, I think, before Earth came around and us humans. I mean, who knows? Maybe there were other species before we even existed.
Right, but I'm really talking about how we are comfortable in telling ourselves stories, fairy tales, mythology, religious stories, versus being comfortable in our ignorance. Can I just share with you my opinion? I don't think we will ever know where we came from. I think it's one of those questions that will forever be a mystery. I think there are a couple likely candidates. One is called the panspermia model. Complex life forms came to us from outer space, and we actually have some evidence of this. We've found certain types of organic compounds on meteorites. The second idea is that life came into being, it's called abiogenesis, through a natural set of processes. This was demonstrated by the Miller-Urey experiments back in the 50s. They created conditions where inorganic natural compounds were put through a scientific process that developed or allowed to develop more complex organic compounds like ammonia. And again, I'm not a physicist or a scientist. I read the studies and what they demonstrate. And then there are a whole host of other possible candidate explanations, right? We've got the creator gods that are, you know, people believe in Brahman or Yahweh or the turtle or Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, right? So how do you get there from here? Or is it okay to be forever comfortable in our ignorance?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really hurt anyone. And, it is just very interesting to learn about that stuff, honestly. Like, I think learning about our existence is one of the most important things and one of the most interesting things to learn about. And no matter if we are believers or non believers, one thing that we could all agree on is that, we exist for some reason.
Why? Why do we exist for a reason?
I mean, because, like, let's just say, you see a piece of food in a microwave. You haven't seen anyone put it in there. However, that doesn't mean that there isn't a reason for the food to be in a microwave. Like, you see what I'm saying?
Not exactly. I mean, when I think about reason or purpose for life, right? I don't assign a reason. I have no reason to believe there's a reason. I think life exists where it can, and that's just one of my presuppositions. I have
Mm.
evidence of this. We can examine the blind fish that are living under the limestone underneath the Amazon River. They never see daylight. They exist entirely in their own little ecosystem. Why? Because they can. Or the fish and the crabs and the bacteria that exist in their own isolated ecosystems where there are thermal vents in the bottom of the ocean. Entirely self-sustaining little ecosystems. No light, no oxygen. The blood of these crabs, I think, is made out of mercury and other wild heavy metals. Again, not a biologist. I just know that these studies have been done. So what's the purpose of them? What's the purpose of a completely isolated, self-sustaining ecosystem? I think life exists where it can. So why do you think there's a purpose to life?
Well, because, like everything, in the world is made out of something. For example, us humans, we have bones, we have, all of this and that inside our bodies. Like, we have a reason why we are on this planet. And we have the stuff that we need in order to survive. But it was actually very nice talking to you, but I gotta go for a little while.
Okay, no
But yeah, I
problem.
will follow you.
I'll follow everyone back. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate I appreciate this discussion. Cosmic tick. Cosmic cosmic tick.
Hey man,
Hi. How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm excellent, but I'll get better. Thanks for asking. What's on your minds today?
So, we're consistently evolving, correct? Even till this day,
Well, we observe it, so I believe that's true.
right? So, and are well. Let me ask you: do you think plants are conscious, or do you know they're conscious?
I I get a little hung up on the words sentient and conscious. I think plants can react to stimuli. I think they have communication systems that we
Mm-hmm.
vaguely understand, but I don't think they're conscious like a rabbit or a human
Right.
is.
So, if we're consistently evolving, and there's basically different levels of, I guess, would be awareness, then what kind of makes us think that it's not the same for something else, right? Like there's not something smarter than us, stronger than us, bigger than us that understands more than we do.
Yeah, well, eagles certainly have better eyesight. Dogs have much better sense of smelling and hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think our consciousness, our brain power, appears to be vastly superior to most other creatures because of the technological worlds that we have created for ourselves. We have created the cell phones and the pens and the chocolate candies, right? These tools that we use to quantify, understand, and appreciate life
Mm-hmm.
are modes of our they're products of our intellect, our consciousness, our ability to do math and drive vehicles and shoot satellites into space, right? That's all cool. But that's just how we evolved. We evolved to be these far too intelligent and inquisitive species.
Right, and it's just super impressive, and like, it just has me thinking like, there's always gonna be a bigger fish in the sea. So I mean, And like I
But
know a lot of
why?
people think like,
But why is it certain that there has to be a bigger fish in the sea? Or again, to stretch the metaphor, why does there have to be a more intelligent alien life form in the universe? Or why does there have to be a creator God? Again, I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
right.
I just don't know why you have to have a logical progression of there has to be something greater than us when we have no evidence for it yet.
Right, and like, I'm not saying we have to believe that there is, but I think it's far better for us to believe that there is. And I know the word believe is a very big word, but we always see it in our everyday life, even in this world, that there's always going to be something bigger. And, we may think, we're at the top of the food chain right now, but where does it really end? And if you really, do you know who John E. Mack is? He's like a psychiatrist for Harvard.
I think mushrooms are on the top of the food chain. No
But,
matter what you are, the mushrooms will get you.
yep. But yeah, so he's
Who?
basically John E. Mack. Should be
I
his name.
don't know who that is.
So basically, he's a professor for Harvard a while ago, and you know who Oprah is,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's sometime there was a show where she invited somebody onto the show around the 1990s, and there was this guy talking about his experience being abducted, right? And like honestly, a lot of people, it's a show, it's probably fake, whatever. But I just want to state that I don't believe this professor would get on the show and kind of ruin his reputation over this. So he was explaining how Oprah was basically telling this guy, "It's just a dream. Like you're crazy. It's fake." And then the guy who literally studies and is a professor at Harvard was saying like, "This isn't the way your body reacts. It's not just a memory." And this person doesn't have any sort of disorders after testing him out, and things like that. Hearing it from a professor is just insane. And another professor from Harvard who does astronomy and things like that. You remember the Oumuamua spaceship thingy, the rock that passed by?
How long ago?
It was in 2017.
Oh, geez. I don't remember the details.
So yeah, basically, another Harvard professor was saying that the way that this thing was like projecting and going right, or rock in space that we've seen react the way as that rock, was our own made rock with like with a jet engine on it, which is human made. But that's like the only rock that reacted that way. And then when he found out about Oumuamua, he was basically saying like there's no way that it isn't from another intelligent species. So when you kind of already have these two people saying like this is crazy, it kind of just really makes you think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's always titillating when we have an unknown quantity or ghost stories, alien abduction stories. But it's to me, I always like to practice skepticism with any and all claims, especially when it has to do with space rocks, aliens, gods, souls, afterlives, things like that. Because even the smartest people in the world can fool themselves into believing things that just aren't so.
Right. And yeah, like I mean, same with me. I'm always being skeptic about everything. But
Yeah.
and then on top of that, when you have kind of the government even themselves stating we don't know what these things are, it means two things: either they are lying and they do know what they are, or they really don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And either option is just
No, for sure.
mind blowing, right? I mean, the government telling 400 million Americans, "Hey guys, we don't know what this is," and we just go on with our lives. You know what I mean? And
Government shrug.
yeah, but
I
either
I
option is
think
just
I
crazy.
don't know is often the honest answer. And let's
Right.
be honest with each other. Let's try not to dupe each other. But there, like P.T. Barnum said, there's a sucker born every minute.
True. True.
All right,
True.
man. Thank you for your feedback. Come again sometime.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Be well. Hello. Are you
Can you
there?
hear me?
I can hear you. What's on your minds today?
Um, So just to give you a quick context, I am currently in school studying psychology and religion. I also just am a curiosity nerd. I like to just learn a lot. And so I wanted to address your is God real? So I think personally, before you can ask that question, I think it's important to recognize what place does God have in society anymore to begin with. I think that if we look back at history, religion kind of served uh, two purposes, and for a long time, which was the first was understanding the world and like what any of this is, and then the second part was how can we um, live amongst one another, right? What is the best way to uh, create society? And I think we're coming to a point where science has been able to take over the first part, right? And so the way I think of it is that anything that has to do with God should not be focused on the science aspect of things because we've figured out that religion isn't necessary to understand the world around us. We have science now. And but I do think that there should be something that's driving um understanding our relationship with one another and how we can kind of work towards an overall better world for everyone. Um, so when you ask, is God real? I'm not even going to, did he create us, right? What that whole, because at the end of the day, right? I mean, the amount of evidence for evolution is overwhelming. And so, as someone who appreciates science, someone who uses science every single day, I can't just try to disregard that because people thousands of years ago who had no understanding of any of that had to come up with like reasons for why things were happening.
Yeah, let me just interject for a minute, and I don't know if this is pushing back or we live in a system of government that allows the average citizen to vote, and the vote determines who is elected to represent us and what kind of legislation they pass. And when there is a concerted effort by religious organizations to write and pass legislation that makes life difficult for half of the population, denying them health care, basic human rights, then I think it's entirely appropriate to put a spotlight on the concept of God, the concept of religion, the usefulness thereof, and examine it critically. Because as our science and education and understanding of the natural worlds do get better and better, we have to struggle with the problems of our dirty, nasty, toxic past. And until we can graduate from these apocalyptic Bronze Age, very bad attempts at describing the natural worlds, we have to sometimes shake people out of these bad ideas.
I 100% agree. Actually, I think that's exactly where I was kind of going. Is that um, the I think that religion, science replaced the first part, and I think we're coming to a point where we're also going to have to figure out maybe something else is going to kind of take the place of the second part, um, because religion, at the end of the day, everything that religion claims to want to be, it never actually ends up being. It always ends up just kind of re uh, refiguring the same stuff that we do anyways. We just
Kind of like communism. It's great on paper until people get their greedy hands in it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you know, I like to think that at least ideally religion is trying to achieve this ultimate benefit, right? Where it's this search for the highest good, you know, and something beyond human beings, right? We've, as a species, we've kind of figured out that we're flawed, whether that's on purpose or not, you know, that people will believe what they want to believe, but we figured that, you know, we're not perfect and we have a lot of issues that makes it very difficult for us to live amongst one another. And so I think that that search for something beyond us, something greater, something that benefits all of humanity is an objectively good thing for us. I don't think you can really argue that that would be a bad thing to do. However, how you go about that, right, is where the issue is. So I, I've been, I've studied Christianity more specifically, and so for me, I have after when you read the Bible, not like your evangelicals will, right? Where they just open it up and they just say, "Oh yeah, this is just true. This book was dropped out of the sky." It's like, no, if you actually study the Bible academically and you look at it through all lenses and perspectives,
Yeah.
I get
Uh,
that.
real quick, I see you in the chat. Wait your turn. We're just doing one-on-one today. I have a lot of guests to get to, so please wrap up your thought, Tommy, and thank you for sharing. And do keep up with your studies. Share your thoughts again. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, just I would just say that uh, I think it's good to look more into Christianity because I think that once you get, do find teachings that are certainly leading towards an objective good for all of humanity, and
Yeah.
has nothing to do with heaven or hell. So, anyways, thank you for having me.
All right. Be well.
You too.
See how inspiring young minds are. I see you, Luna. I'm looking forward to our chat. Um, I've got one guest ahead of you, and you'll be up next. Please stay with us. Oh, they disappeared. Often when people request, they wait and wait and wait, and I know I do long-form conversations sometimes. We are long-winded here. And then I invite them in, and then they disappear. All right, Luna, you're up. Hello.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today? What's on your minds?
I'm doing all right. So, one of the things I wanted to address is, first of all, I don't believe in any God. But I wanted to address some things about the skeptical community
Okay.
that I see wrong happening. There is a neurological basis to individuals that report precognition, mind-to-mind interaction, and mind over matter. You can see that through fMRI, and that is substantiated. Now, what I wanted to talk about is obviously there's two separate issues that are occurring. We see a neurological basis to something. Now, if these individuals are actually able to do this, that's a whole nother form of research in itself. But if there's a neurological basis to something, then that means that I know a lot of skeptics follow the deterministic model, right? So we can't change our neurology. And so when I see harassment happening to people that are experiencing something and calling them liars, that's my pet peeve. I have an issue with, because when they do that, it's creating a form of social injustice where these people are not They're being made to be shamed for their experiences. They're made to be put out as if they're uneducated. They're being made to put out, and this can actually have some real consequences in our society, right? We can
Oh,
see that
sure. When you
happening in mental health
ostracize
issues.
someone or a group of people, that then they become violent, agitated, and dangerous.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to address. I mean, we do have research that can have suggested evidence that there is actually something that is occurring. Just by we can see statistics, right? That's how we play it. Now, if the person chooses not to believe the science behind that, that's their choice. But you can argue religion or new age concept. That's an idea or a choice, and that is taught and can be challenged. However, when you start going after the person that's experiencing it, that's when I have the problem. So I just wanted to make that clear. I was going to write you a message to go more into details about it. I just don't feel like a person that identifies as a psychic has to go out and to actively try to convince a person of what they're experiencing, just to have basic human respect. And
And
so, yeah, go
so,
ahead, Brian.
sorry, I'm really interested from more of those details and studies to come out and be quantified. If there is something there, then I think that's fascinating.
Well, we can see that the people that are born this way, because it's something that you're born with. And we can see that their brain chemistry is similar to that of Buddhist monks or frequent meditators, which I think is kind of interesting. But it also, there's like whole different kinds of unusual neural networks. And so a lot of individuals that have psi also, they believe have synesthesia. So
They have what? What's that word?
the synesthesia,
I'm
it's
not familiar with it. I gotta look it up.
it's basically when it's geniuses have it. It's common because of the neural networks are actually more collected. So they've also did different kinds of studies before. Previously, they used to think of brain injuries and kind of mental illness that was causing different kinds of psi experiences. And now they're finding it between geniuses and people with frequent meditators, where their brain chemistry is just born differently. So I can show you some kind of forms of research, and I'll probably send it to your message. I don't have them right off the hand on my.
Yeah, please do. No, I'm interested to read that or see that. Can you
But
can
then
you type
there's
that
also
word
another.
into can you type that word into chat? Every time you say it, the mic is like Stasia.
Okay, let me pull up something real quick. Just a minute. I have my laptop right in front of me. Just a second.
Or spell the word. Is it Synesthesia?
Something. It's like because I'm not a scientist. I'm just a lab rat.
Synethesia. What is synesthesia? Synesthesia is when you hear music. It's one of your senses through another. For example, you might have the name Alex and see green.
Yeah,
Is that
it's
what you
different
were?
kinds of.
Is that
Yeah,
what
and
the
so
word you were using?
yes, yes, and so in a sense, that would be considered some kind of form of neurodivergency, I guess, from the neurotypical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there is that, and I guess, and it's not. And one other thing I would like to talk about is healthy people that are psychic that are healthy don't have hallucinations. They don't have audio hallucinations. And I feel as if the skeptical community paints, which is another thing that we have to fight against. And all that and help fight against the discrimination about it and the misunderstandings. Now, skeptics, I'm not telling them not to believe or not to believe. That's their choice. They can look at the research themselves and educate themselves if they choose to.
Yeah.
However, when we talk about the neurology of the person, that's a whole nother matter. So I just
And
wanted
I
to come in and jump in real quick and just discuss that.
all good. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Take care.
You too. Um, I'm guilty of it too sometimes. I make fun of people when I shouldn't. I try not to. I make a concerted effort to. And if I ever do it, I want you guys to call me out on it. But there's a difference between treating a person with respect and treating an idea or a concept with no respect. I think ideas do not deserve respect. I think ideas need to be scrutinized, shared, explored, tested, falsified. But the people that holds those ideas or belief systems or believe that they are psychic or tapping into the supernatural of any kind, well, we need to examine those ideas and concepts while also giving the person respect. Now, don't get it twisted. Some people do not deserve respect. Some people are charlatans, scam artists, and horrible manipulative creatures that are harmful, right? They don't deserve. Kenneth Copeland does not deserve a shred of respect. Ken Ham, nary a shred. I think people like them do incredible damage to our pursuit of knowledge and indoctrination of children and young minds and impressionable people. And the ideas that they peddle are toxic and dangerous and antiquated and have been proven false. And maybe there is more to neurodivergent people that are more evolved than us, right? But I need to see it before I believe it. Oh, good. Nils is here.
I had
Hi.
heyo. I had two things to say. One, new thing with the comment you just made, where they're like more evolved. I feel like that's a bad way to think of it. I feel like a better way to think of it is everyone has a different neurological structure that's attuned to different things. I feel like we should just try and create a society that figures out what people are attuned to and then help develop those skills. Like for example,
Yes.
good at math,
Yes.
get you good at math. Really good at literature, get you good at literature, etc., etc. We should push
Music.
your strengths.
Like, people who are the most talented musicians that I've ever seen are terrible at everything else. So, right, nurture that. Of course, everyone needs to know the basics, basic algebra, read and write, how our government works, right? Everyone needs to know. You have to achieve a certain baseline of intelligence in order to be a functioning member of society. But then when you're really good at that one thing, like art, boom, skyrocket right to the top. That's you.
Yeah, one thing I would also say is I think you need to. I feel like honestly there should be more humility taught in schools because it sounds like when and even by like teachers and stuff because when teachers and professors talk, it feels like they aren't. At least professors are different actually in my experience, but with teachers throughout like elementary school and stuff, they act super certain about things. Like this is how it works. This is modification of how it really works, which is much more complex.
Yeah, then we can go down the rabbit hole of the problem of standardized testing and teaching to the test and it teaching the fun right out of education. It's a tragedy. There's a great movie that came out a few years ago called Where to Invade Next. And I don't even want to say the guy's name because people will get triggered, but he goes around the world and he steals the greatest ideas from all these countries. He goes to France and he looks at their nutrition programs in their school and compare. Or we can go to Sweden and look. I think it was Sweden, and he looks at the rehabilitation programs. When people F up, we don't just stick them in a box in isolation, because that's, if you didn't know, solitary confinement is a form of torture.
Yeah,
Right?
we're
Instead, let's
social animals.
rehabilitate
Isolation
these.
will kill us.
Yeah, so look, we are doing it wrong in so many ways, and all we have to do is examine the countries that are doing it right, and you know what's the term? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery.
Oh, I say go one step further. Take the idea, say it was your own, and then pretend France never did it and you came up with it yourself. Based.
America.
America, exactly. You did this? No, we did this. This is our idea.
Yep.
The
Oh
American
man.
way. Yeah. The second
Eh,
thing though was oh wait, sorry.
no, yeah, please go on.
No, you go first because you had something to add on the first topic.
I thought that was your second point. I was going to say thank you or we're moving on, but please go ahead. What's your second
Oh,
point?
my second thing was what do you think about the idea of religion being important as tradition? Because I'd never thought about it this way, but this recently occurred to me. I'm not really like Muslim anymore, but like my ancestry has been Muslim for a really, really long time. And I still like doing stuff like fasting during Ramadan and these like kind of traditions. And I'm like, I wonder if religion is important as a tradition in the sense of like having a family identity, having something you can point to and be like, that's me and stuff like that. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about it.
Yeah. I think it's a tough one. It's a tough one because now you have to sort through the difference between, like, yes, I think practicing Ramadan, fasting for a period of time it can be healthy. It can also be abused and dangerous, right? So you have to do everything in moderation and to recognize your family history, your culture that you came from. And again, as an American, where we are the mixing pots of all the cultures, I think we have a bit of a unique perspective. I'm sure that if I went to Turkey or South Korea or anywhere else in the world where it's not necessarily the same kind of culture, I may have a radically different opinion about this. So it's a really tough question to answer.
Yeah, it's just weird
It's
because
hard.
when I think about it, it feels like I have lost something by like not being as like Muslimy anymore. Like I lost like a part of my identity. But then I'm like or not lost it. It feels like identity wise, it still feels like I'm like culturally Muslim because I was raised that way. I still like to do like we still do all the celebrations the same way that like atheists believe in do Christmas. Like I still do Eid and stuff with my family, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So then it's like, I don't know. Sorry, this is like a
Yeah.
really hard question. This has just been
No,
on my mind.
if I could just put it simply, keep the good and reject the bad. It's just that simple, right? Right? Yes, like you said, I practice Christmas with my family not because we're religious, but because it's the culture, it's part of the culture. And I think there's value in that, right? Coming together, sharing meals, and giving each other gifts, worship anything. It's the winter solstice because seasonal depression is real and the concept of the days getting longer make me feel better, right? I get motivated when there's more daylight in the day and I don't need spirituality or mumbo jumbo or voodoo to feel that relief from seasonal depression. Again, let's keep the good and reject the bad. And like I keep saying, my mantra is going to be all I want to do is get to Star Trek. If we can just recognize our humanity and be brothers and sisters in a cause, to promote happiness and achievement, whatever that is, and reach for the stars and explore strange new worlds and seek out new life and go where civilization has never gone before. That to me is a unifying concept. But we have to get over these bad traditions first.
I forgot about it back then, but it might be hard for someone to leave religion if they think they have to give up all these traditions that they like. And like, it feels like I wish. This is the thing that I wish. I wish religion wasn't pigeonholed into one idea. Like, you have to believe in the exact way I believe, or it's not true. I wish it was more like, hey, there's like for example, I'm a deist, right? I wish it was more like, hey, there's a god, and I don't know how he acts, but this is how I hope he acts. This is how I hope he is. This is how blah blah blah. I don't know for sure, but like some sort of divine humility where you're just like, there's a god, but I don't really know, and I just hope he's a good guy. And if he is a good guy,
Yeah.
you know what? Or girl or whatever, or genderless creature of entity ness.
Rainbow Giraffe.
Rainbow Giraffe, of course. Whatever they are. I just hope they're like a good person or whatever, right? And you can have your own things, like, oh, maybe he did send like Jesus or whatever, but I don't think Jesus would like, after in like the modern day or something, would condemn homosexuality or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
sure he would like see the good in people and see how it doesn't cause damage to society and be like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I could have some humility. Because I think this is actually one thing that I think is the weirdest thing about God. God can't be wrong. But that's the thing that I respect the most about people. The ability to be wrong and correct yourself. Humility. That's like the most respectable thing. And so it's like, it feels hard to respect a God that can't make mistakes and correct them, because then it doesn't feel like a real thing. Or
Yeah.
even like, it feels more like a force of nature than an actual conscious being.
So, my final thought, and then I want to let you wrap it up. I've got a very anxious guest waiting.
Okay.
I think we are seeing a little more acceptance to multi-faith endeavors, like the Unitarian Universalist Church is a good example. They don't require you follow their doctrine. They want you to just, join them and be
Vibe.
part of a community, right? Deists, theists, everyone is always welcome in these UU churches, or like modern progressive churches too. Yes, they are Christian, but they're not as strict
Vitriolic.
about. Right, yeah. So final thoughts, and then I want to thank you again for your thoughts, and come again.
My thoughts are just, I guess for final thoughts, it's just like religion is a really complex thing, and I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. I think it's just a tool that we use, but I wonder if it's a tool that should be discarded as times go by because it has become obsolete. And I guess
Mm.
that's my ending statement. Have a good one, dude. Stay safe.
Yes, you too. Likewise. All right, Cool Tech. Here you go. It's your turn.
Hey, hey, happy
Hello.
Saturday.
Happy Saturday to you. What's on your
Yeah.
mind?
I actually wanted to join the two of you in that conversation, but I'll just go over I joined when you were talking about education and then religion as cultural aspect of religious stuff. So on the education side, interestingly, a super interesting fact is that Singapore, which presumably went from being sort of last in the world to being first in the world at math and other educational, their education system, and now their economy and all that kind of stuff is, really significant. The Singapore methods for educating came from American think tanks. So,
Singapore went Super Saiyan in education.
yeah, and it's so funny that we've always had the knowledge. We developed the knowledge and tool for up, ingrained systemic problems for deploying new concepts. Prevented us from adopting those early on. Now we did recently attempt to adopt them, and that's what the Common Core stuff is. So Common Core is based on the Singapore methods, which were based on the concepts that were developed by education think tanks in the U.S.
Mm.
So it's really interesting that we know how to do it. We get our smart people together to figure out how to do it, and they figure it out. But then we don't adopt those things. So I thought that was really interesting.
Where do we spend our energy and our time and our political capital?
Yeah.
And right now, our government is so upside down. Don't expect anything to get done for a while. I'm very tragically sad that our modern American government has decided to shoot itself in the foot for a little while.
And take us
But
with.
yeah, yeah. So don't forget to vote, everyone. Vote.
Yeah. And the other comment was on the topic of whether it's good or not to is how I would summarize it, right? I think that's kind of what the last person was talking about, right?
What do you mean exactly? I'm sorry, I was
Right.
a little distracted.
Religious,
Thank you for the gifts. Very much appreciated.
religious-based identity, in the sense that your cultural identity is you are part of a group. I think he was saying that by taking part in the cultural activities of a religion, you feel part of the group, and that is somehow makes you feel better, or is a positive influence. And I would just abstract it back to what you were saying, which is I kind of disagree with that, and I think that the right model is the Star Trek model, right? And by creating these artificial cultural groups based on things like religion. Oh, that's your friend. I saw that.
Chelsea's here. Finger
Yeah.
hearts.
Um, but
Yes, I'll get Lisa up on the screen. Everyone, hang on. I'll change it to Lisa. I love you all. Sorry, please continue.
sure. What was I saying? By creating these artificial groups, what we're doing is creating separation rather than joining humanity together. We're
Yeah.
creating divisions rather than unions. And it's sort of like no matter what topic that's based on, that's a bad thing, not a good thing. We should have substitutes which are completely positive, and don't have this negative aspect um, of separating people. Ooh, what's going on here? I'm talking to the giraffe only.
Yeah, sorry. I've got another amazing Lisa picture that I need to download off of Discord. I promise everyone's gonna love it. So just yeah, keep ranting. Go for it. You got this.
Well, all right. So I guess another interesting thing I encountered recently was there's another TikToker who sort of challenges people to prove that God does not exist, and he'll give you $1,000. I don't know if you've seen that. And so I engaged with him a few days ago to see what the deal was, right? And it's really interesting. He's a smart guy. He's sort of very animated, and there's some anger there. But what he's doing is he's done some amount of studying of of the subject of logic in terms of philosophy and math.
Yeah,
And
he's an apologist. He's an Islamist apologist.
what does that mean?
And well, uh, um, an apologist is someone who tries to use syllogisms and logic to basically define God into existence.
Right.
And the counter apologetics or polemics is basically what I'm doing here, and what similar other TikTok creators are doing. They're saying, well, we have to examine the facts, and the moment to believe something is after there's evidence. But they're trying to define God in such a way that they can never be disproven. And what this guy is doing is asking people to do something that's impossible, because it is impossible to prove a negative, right? You can't prove something doesn't exist. It's the black swan fallacy. And he's offering $1,000 to anyone because he has absolutely zero intentions to actually award someone with $1,000, and therefore he is a dishonest actor.
Sure. No, and I came into it. I even said, obviously you're doing this as you're never going to pay out $1,000. That's not your real intent. And they'll say, oh no, I really want somebody to disprove the existence of God. But what's interesting about it, though, and it's interesting the things that you just said too, because I read up a little bit. I never studied formal logic, philosophy-based logic. So I started reading up on that so that I would get sort of tooled up in a practical way, with the intent of engaging him again. Now that I know sort of like the direction that he's from.
Yeah, good luck.
And so, like, for instance, what you just talked about, I believe would fall under the category of, there's two types. Well, there's theoretically two types of logic, right? There's um, inductive and deductive reasoning, right?
Yeah.
And so your postulation is that we need inductive reasoning in order to deal with things in the real world. But his point is, no, I can prove or disprove the existence of God using deductive reasoning. And deductive reasoning does not require evidence. Deductive reasoning doesn't require evidence. You create these things that are called premises, and you say, okay, what are the premises that you need in order to prove your point? And he says that he said that to me. He's like, okay, what axioms do you want, right? In order to prove that there's no God, what axioms do you want in order to do that? And of your logical argument, and then explain, and then I'll give you whatever you want if deductive reasoning. And so again, this is all stuff that I've read up on afterwards.
So I brought Nils back in so you guys can nerd out for a few minutes.
Yeah, sorry. I just actually wanted to talk about this because I debated the same guy. I'm probably going to try and debate him again because I think I can get him. I think I can get him because
I don't even want to say his name, okay? Let's not give him any more clout.
It's because the thing that he messes up on is once he says, "Oh, sorry, go."
I was going to say, do you agree that there's some anger there?
It seems like he's from him.
You won't see me on TikTok if I'm bent out of shape, unless I'm ranting about politics, maybe.
So Niels, are you knowledgeable about logic, formal logic in philosophy and its technique?
Kind of, because I had to basically take a course on discrete math, which is basically just formal logic. It's just like all that shit. And I did well in it, so I think I understand something. And the thing is, he uses a lot of stuff wrong. Like when we talk about so he's like, "Oh, you can just use the laws of logic to get to God," and I'm like, "You don't understand. Without Occam's razor, you can draw any line through any set of data."
Right.
And
my take on him is that he's done some studying of formal logic stuff, and he has quite, he knows a lot of the terms, and he has his interpretation of them. And he's not gonna donate his knowledge to the conversation. And so 99% of the people that he engages with, 99.9% of the people have not studied that stuff, and so he can just dismiss them by saying you don't understand formal logic, or you don't.
I'm pretty sure he is.
No?
Yeah, if we're saying he's a disingenuous actor, I think that is the case because when I tried, like earlier in a conversation, he said he didn't know what Occam's razor was, and then he acted like he did, and he's like, "Oh, well, why do you have to presuppose it?" And I'm like, "Well, if you knew about Occam's razor and how we get into absurdity without it, due to the fact that we can create any postulation, such as like last Tuesdayism, that's like the classic example."
What's that one?
So that's basically saying the universe was created last Tuesday. And there's no way to disprove that. So, like, why isn't it true? Right?
Right.
Yeah, Russell's teapot. Basically, Russell's teapot argument, right?
Okay, I don't know that one, but
Oh, Russell's teapot. Did you know that there's a teapot orbiting the moon right now?
oh
really,
yes.
really
Okay,
small.
no, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's really small and no one's ever seen
this. And it's
So
like,
let
obviously he
me let
doesn't,
me
because you can start to trap him into the, oh, sorry.
let me test out my let me test that out. So he said, what axioms do you want to, or let's call it premises, because that's the correct term, I guess, in philosophical logic. And I would say, okay, the premises I want are, let me see if I can remember them now. The premises I want are that everything, the existing, his thing was like, prove that God does not exist. So the first premise is that anything that exists is in the natural world.
Oh, wait, you should actually start before that. You
Okay.
should start to, because here's the thing. The thing about philosophy papers, this is the big thing that you learn. Everyone talks about their and defines their terms beforehand
Right.
because that's important. Everyone has to be working with the same definition. So you
Right.
first have to define prove and God.
Well,
So
yeah,
what?
those are the.
Yeah.
I got to. It's funny when I was engaging with them, even though I wasn't trained in this stuff. Those were the two questions I ended up at. I was like, okay, I've gotten this other stuff. I have my axioms, but now you have to tell me what you mean by proving it, and now you have to tell me what you mean by God.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you have to
And then
trap
he
him.
kind of like got real accelerated, and and
Yeah.
a little more combative and all that kind of stuff.
Because what you have to do
agitated.
is you have to force him to concede that he believes in the Islamic God, and then once you get him to concede he believes in the Islamic God, then you can actually start grilling him. Like,
And
I'm a
interesting.
deist. I don't assume that the God is conscious, right? Like, I assume a God. I just assume nothing else about him. I'm just like,
Interesting.
there's a God. What's he like? Eh.
Okay,
That's
so
Eh,
it.
wait. So let me
whatever
just
you
finish
want.
my clever little. Let me just finish my clever little thing where I'm at right now, at least, right?
Okay.
So I'm trying to make it real simple, right? At least at first. And so it's like the first one is um, existence is defined as in the natural world. Things that exist in the natural world. The second thing is things in the natural world can be measured. And the third thing is that God cannot be measured.
Yeah. So they.
Therefore, and then your therefore is God does not exist.
Yeah. Or you could say God does not exist in the natural world and can't interact with us. And if they can't
No,
interact with us in
because
any way.
we already defined existence as being in the natural world, so you don't need to do
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah, okay, never mind. Then yes. Then he wouldn't exist. But I think he would like start to attack you on your premises like, oh, what does it mean to exist though, right?
Actually, what he the way he got around it, the way I think he's going to get around it is, and I listened to another one of his conversations, is he's willing to say that you can measure God. He says that yes, God is part of the natural world and he can be measured. It's just that humans can't measure him.
Yeah, so this is where like a huge like you can start to pick apart his epistemology here because the problem is he doesn't apply Occam's razor and you actually just have to like I don't know how to illustrate this to the audience. I've actually been thinking about this
Yeah, maybe
because
that's what we need to figure out, right?
yeah, because it's not about him. It's more about the audience. Because it's like if you don't understand Occam's razor, then I actually don't know how to talk to you a lot of the time because it's like it's such a fundamental concept that we shouldn't assume things that are unnecessary. Like I
You're
feel
you're welcome to use my if you ever
the
want to use my story about my auditory hallucination. I you
oh
must yeah, talk about my auditory hallucination if you want.
How does that
And
go?
then use well I believe that I experienced a auditory hallucination about a year ago. I was falling asleep and heard my grandmother's voice in my ears, like just as more clearly than I hear you guys right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And it got me out of bed, and I was saying, "Yeah, what is it?" And then I heard her snoring on the first floor. She sleeps in a bedroom below me, and then I'm on the second floor, so I could hear her snoring. And then I later concluded that I experienced an auditory hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
And they're normal. People have them more frequently than we realize.
Sure.
We just dismiss them. Or I could have concluded that I heard my grandmother's voice reaching through her dream into my dream. And maybe she was having a nightmare. And I should have gone and woken her up. Or I can apply Occam's razor and conclude that the simplest answer is more.
That the way that you guys are describing Occam's razor is not is not, if we're talking about deductive reasoning, at least from what I read, it is what is it called? There's a couple of categories of, like, it's not an absolute in the deductive reasoning, and so therefore you can't deduce any absolutes once you have that.
Yeah, and then we're.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, we lost him. Oh, the
Oh,
teapot. It's back.
Wait, I thought you said we couldn't prove the teapot was there.
this is just an image.
We have a
Doesn't mean it's real.
we have a picture of it. Oh man.
Yeah, I just think because where I was getting him to, and I think if I hammer on this point, it'll work. Because when he says there's like I presuppose some sort of like creator, right? Hence the deism. I don't know if it's conscious or anything, but that's where I start to like push him, where it's like, why do we know it's conscious? Why do we know it cares about people? Why do we know it interacts with people? How do we know of these physical claims, right? And that's where I push him. Like I go, okay, you believe in the Islamic God, and then you want to push physical claims that existed, and then you push back on that.
But his thing isn't about that. You know, he doesn't go down again. That's sort of evidentiary stuff. It's
Oh no, he does. You can get him to go down that stuff because
and
I got him to get down. Yeah, I got him to get down like talking about evolution, and he's like, "Oh well, the science is always changing, and there's a paradigm shift." And it's like, okay,
science.
yeah. Then you sound like, and to a certain extent, how I feel about science, where if we look at the overlap of human experience with some sort of careful vetting, we can get some level of truth. I feel like we can do the same with religion in a sense, where we can look at some level of overlap and say there's probably something out there, or maybe there's something spiritual, but I don't know what it is. There could be a metaphysical world. That's
So,
all I like really postulate.
but you sound like sort of believe in physics, right?
Yeah.
And
Just
you
because there is a creator doesn't mean that physics doesn't work, right?
and you
Like,
believe in the natural world, and that anything in the natural world is measurable and causal and things like
yeah.
that.
But then
So
once we start to get out, or so far, yes, because once we get to certain parts
so
of
far,
physics, it gets really weird.
well, that's the agnostic part, right? So that's the
Yeah.
so far, right? So if you believe all of those things and you are a fan of Occam's razor, then why would you put more complication into the existence of something that you cannot possibly have interaction with?
Yeah, so I don't think it's more complicated. I think it's so God, in my definition, can actually be interacted with. It's just he doesn't
That's
do
interesting.
anything. It's
So
just
if
a natural force, kind of.
God can be interacted with, is God part of the natural world or the supernatural world?
I would say God is the beginning of the natural world. So
Oh,
before
so
we
you
have any
just
of the rules that we think of,
okay.
yeah,
You
sorry.
think of God as just like, oh, you don't believe in a directly intervening God. You're just saying that we don't really know what the beginning was, and so you're going to attribute it to some kind of supernatural or some kind of thing that's before. Let's use terms that are a little wishy washy, but before the universe existed, in order for it to come into existence, there had to be a cause.
Yeah, and that initial cause is God.
So, as part of modern physics, it turns out that a lot of the best modern physicists now have theories that say that time goes both forward and backward infinitely.
Oh yeah, and it can also they've also drawn like a million other dimensions for time, and they're like, what if it also goes up and down, and we have a plane of time, and it's like, dude, the shit gets crazy. There's like
Right.
a lot of stuff like that where
You
it
know,
could be
if
eternity, it could be an infinite cycle, but my whole thing with this is if time extends in both directions and it's eternal, when did it start? What made it come into existence?
Well, you're trying to understand infinity, and humans can't.
We've got a new guest
see.
joining.
This
Hey,
is
what's
what I
up,
would.
guys?
Hey,
Hello. This is what I
Yeah,
would.
how you guys doing?
Doing good.
Yeah,
How about
good.
you?
Just one sec. Let them finish up their thought.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
sorry. I would just say when
Okay.
we talk about concepts of infinity being hard to grasp,
yeah.
I think that's a lie. I think that's a lie we tell ourselves when we can't like. I think honestly, the human mind is more capable than people think. People used to be like, "Oh, we'll
Sure.
never
We can
understand
conceive of
imaginary numbers," and now everyone understands imaginary numbers like they're second grade in
we can
like
conceive of it
university.
the correct way, but we can't create our ability to model experience doesn't include it. For instance, like what you just said, it can show up in the math. The problem is when we have math that goes to that reduces to singularities. Well, first of all, that's one of the reasons why these new theories have come up, right? Is that if you
Yeah, to
use
fix the
back,
singularities that appear in math. And
right,
by singularities, we just mean like a dumb number, usually infinity, or usually something that's like zero equals zero, where it doesn't matter, and you
right.
get like nonsense answers.
Well, Occam's razor singularities, and one answers that doesn't. The one that doesn't is more likely to be true.
Well, not necessarily. It's just more like it's more likely to be true in science because when we do the math and we get an infinity and we observe what happens, usually we don't see that or we can't confirm it. Like you get an infinity on a black holes in space time, according to it's infinitely dense, it's infinitely like curved and all that stuff. But then what's it gonna we
But
don't actually we
that's what
can't
I think
tell. We
that.
can't
All
tell,
right.
so we can never confirm.
But
Or
that
All
maybe
right,
we can
guys.
confirm.
what that
All
indicates
right,
is
guys. We're
this.
gonna wrap up our nerdgasm real quick. And
Yeah,
NBA,
annoying.
did you have any questions for these guys, or did you want to talk to me? I'm gonna ask them to step down if not.
No, bro, I was saying like no one like know how the world created. You know what I mean? Everything was made up in the world. You know what I mean? From the beginning. You know?
Yeah.
So
Well,
no
some people
have like
claim they
no one
know.
have no proof of how the world exists. You know what I
Yeah, but
mean?
people claim that they know.
You said they claim.
Yeah.
How do they know? You know what I mean?
Good question.
Because
Yeah.
the Big Bang Theory is a suggestion.
Yeah,
You
well,
know what
The
I
Big
mean?
Bang Theory is different from what you're thinking. Big Bang Theory is just the expansion of the universe, and that's real. The Big Bang is debated because the Big Bang is like a weird concept because it's saying the universe was a singularity, which is contested. Sorry, I had to nerdgasm a little more.
it's all good. Right. So let's talk about the Big Bang model for a minute. We have a mathematical model that describes how the universe at one point was infinitely small and dense, and then it expanded. So I like to use the Great Expansion as the name of the Big Bang, right? But again, at the end of the day, it's just a mathematical model. We don't know what happened. We can't observe what happens. We have a model that describes what probably, likely, possibly happened. But because we can never go back in time like that and observe it, because we are inside the universe, we cannot be outside to observe it. Therefore, it's just a model. It's just a concept. We don't know what happens. And if any scientist is telling you that we know what happens, they're they're not using language appropriately, or they're lying, or they're misinformed, or they're just arrogant.
Or they're trying to hype up their study.
Yeah, they're selling a book.
Yeah.
But what I like to point out is all of the other people who know with certainty that God just created it. So if nothing can come from nothing, how did God just speak existence into existence? How did God use whatever God magic to create something out of nothing? See, that's the possible
That's what I'm
explanation that I
saying,
can't
bro.
get
That's what I'm
behind.
saying. Nobody knows. You know what I mean? nobody knows. You know.
Nobody knows the trouble I've seen.
So here's the thing though. If nobody knows, if there's something that nobody knows, and you have different possibilities for what might be the truth of it, by what process do eliminate some of those possibilities, or say which one is the most likely? If we can't prove something to as being, you can't really prove anything, right? But we can we can come as close as we can. We have what's called a confidence. We have confidence in the answer. And so what hopefully the goal of rational people is to try to get as much confidence as possible in answers that you think are the correct answers, or even just to find the answers for which you have the most confidence. And so
Right.
I put on the same playing field things that have zero confidence with things that have some.
Right. We often abuse language. Language is a tricky thing. When I say I know something, I often mean to say I have a very, very high level of confidence in the statement, right? But it's a mouthful. So things like, yes, we know that the heart pumps blood. That is its function as an organ. We know that the lungs um, process air and take out the oxygen and exchange carbon dioxide and all this other fancy processes that the lungs do. We know certain things, but really we just have a very, very high level of confidence in those statements because of our observation and testability and repeatability. So when it comes to very abstract concepts like mathematics even, or thermodynamics,
What's sort of suggesting is that there's this essentially a false equivalency between, if you can't know something, we should ignore confidence because you can't know something for sure. And if you can't know something for sure, then things for which you have low confidence are just as likely as things for which you have high confidence. But it's not a binary like that, right? That's a false equivalency.
yeah.
Truth is more subtle.
Like I said, bro, we all. Like I said, bro.
All right, I think you're glitching, NBA. If you guys don't mind stepping down, I've got another guest. I'd kind of like to go back to the one-on-one format for a little while,
Sure.
but
How,
thank you so
No
much.
problem. Have a
Yeah,
good one.
thanks a ton for
how do
your
I
nerdgasm. Totally love you guys. Be well.
how do I step
No
down?
problem. Sorry you have to clean up after our nerdgasm, but
Yeah, I'm gonna get out the mop and bucket. There's a little X in the corner of your square, or you can hit the multi-guest button on the bottom and disconnect that way.
Oh, nice. Okay, I see that. All right. Talk to you soon.
nice talking to
Later.
you. See you another time. Or I guess nice talking to you again. Anyway, bye.
Hell yeah. All right, Sydney, your
Hello
turn.
there.
What's on your mind?
Oh, good morning. Good morning from Sydney. Yes. So the thing is that I was like believer in God as from the religion of Islam where I brought up. Then I changed my mind 20 years ago. Scientifically, I changed it, of course. And now that I'm thinking of, well, if we have the Big Bang, which I'm scientific person, the Big Bang, and the first particles came up after that, which is after that in a fraction of seconds, then spiritually and philosophically, I could really say, me, the Big Bang is my God. the first particle is my God. And because every time we say that God is like, well, we don't know what's the nature of God, even how we've been created or why we've been created, then I will just leave it like that. The Big Bang is my God, or the first particles, they are my God. And I will leave
Yeah,
it that way. And then hence I will feel more satisfied spiritually and scientifically. I could connect these two together, knowing that maybe 10 or 20 years from now, and if I'm still alive and something come up new, I don't know, something instead of the Big Bang, the bigger bang, then I'm going to say the bigger bang is my God. And then I will just evolve with that thing. So what's your thoughts about that?
it reminds me of people using the sun as God. Ra. If all of life on Earth is dependent on the sun, which it isn't, we actually know that it's not. But let's pretend for a minute that it is. If all of the well, I guess. All right. Here's my thought. I was thinking of the thermal vents that have no sunlight, no oxygen, right? And there are these ecosystems, bacteria and things that are just existing, right? No gods required, no human intervention. They're just existing off of the thermal energy coming out of the earth. Hypothetically, if the sun didn't give out the heat that it does, maybe those ecosystems would still exist. Maybe we could find them on Europa and other moons around Jupiter or Saturn, right? It's possible. We just haven't had the technology yet to discover them. Um, but at the end of the day, whenever you use the smuggling in all of the baggage from everyone else's God, so it's a useless term, or it's a term that can be very misleading, and that's why I encourage you to use different language of all life, and that's your path to walk, my friend. If that's what you want to believe, then I would just encourage you not to use the word God. What do you think about that?
Yes, yes. I follow. Correct. I didn't look at it that way. Correct. I really appreciate it. Yeah, because the word God then it's gonna be. Yep, I got you. Because it might be interpreted exactly what you said with the other religions, which is some kind of,
You
the
could
one
call it
who tell
you
us
could
what to
call it
do or not to do. I agree
you
with
could
you.
call
I
it
agree with you.
Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, and she poops out universes. That's her job. That's her function. And praise
Well,
leaf be upon her. Praise the Lisa.
that's right. Well, my son next to me, he's 17 years old. Would you call
There
him
you
then?
go.
Exactly. He's smiling. Yeah, he has to think about it. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
And hello to Sydney. It's Sunday over there, isn't it? It's early in the morning. Praise Lisa, leaf be upon her. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Minds today.
Okay, so this is a bit of a twister for me because my answer is I don't know. Like, because originally I grew up Presbyterian, is the way I was indoctrinated, the way I was raised, and I've had that belief for the last 20 plus years. And more recently, I've been starting to deconstruct it one by one a bit, and now I'm sort of on the fence because I went from fully unbelieving to now being like, I'm not fully certain that he does. I can't prove he can, I can't prove he can't. But I'm not gonna make the claim that he does or he doesn't because we don't have anything to back it up. And it's like
Yeah.
first I adopt during the whole thing I adopted theistic evolution because I in my mind that what made the most sense between not knowing but also sort of rallying still on that belief that he does exist and that he did create it, but within the laws of science, nature, evolution, etc. Since with that explanation, they can go hand in hand and won't contradict each other.
Yeah. So where are you now in this path? Do you have any
But then
thoughts on the matter?
I'm still mixed. I
Yeah.
think I may be trending more towards agnostic, but I actually talked to Daniel about this, and he actually like what's keeping me from like being from fully committing to not knowing and deconverting. I'm like I don't know. The only thing I could think of reasonably is the fact that I use the religion I was taught growing up as a place where if I need to seek comfort, I can. So I use it as a
Mm-hmm.
security blanket essentially, and that's
Yeah.
and that's where I feel comfortable if I need to like if something happens and I need I need comfort and I can't explain it, then that's one thing I know I can at least resort to because that's what I've known for my whole life.
Well, fortunately, we live in a world now where it's more and more acceptable to be skeptical or a non-believer, a free thinker, right? There's a greater network of support than ever before. We have the internet, we have organizations like Recovering from Religion that anyone can reach out to if they're struggling with their deconversion. I've reached out to them, and I'm actually considering training to be one of their volunteers because it seems so parallel to what we're doing on TikTok right now, right? We're having these conversations. I obviously then maybe would be appropriate for that particular organization. However, I think it's a worthy endeavor, right? It's worth taking the time. Realize that sometimes there is no evidence or evidence against the claim, and what you choose to believe at the end of the day is kind of even out of your control. Our whole reality, our perception, everything is shaped through the lens that we view life, and we can't choose what to believe in. We arrive at beliefs through evidence, either good evidence or bad evidence. Maybe some of those religious claims, those anecdotal stories like the similarity of near-death experiences and what it means to dream about Jesus or Gehenna or Brahman or whatever deity, right? These concepts are very comforting and real at the time until you examine them critically. So the question really becomes if you're comfortable in your ignorance, if you're comfortable not knowing. And that takes a long time. It takes a very long time to become comfortable not knowing. Some people never achieve it. And it sounds like you're questioning, you're asking the questions, and you're headed down that path.
Yeah, I feel like that's where that security blanket comes in because I'm not really comfortable with the unknown. I, I don't like that at all. I'm because my ADHD, my anxiety. I'm a person that needs certainty, that needs exact answers. I cannot do uncertainty because it logically doesn't make any sense. What's the point of having an idea if
If you examine, then I eventually arrived at the conclusion that the answer doesn't really matter, one way or the other. Even if we were created by a creator, or if we just evolved through a natural process, at the end of the day, we are here, we are alive, we know for certain, again, high degree of certainty, that this is one of, if not the only life that we are ever allowed to experience, that we will ever realize. So then the question becomes, what do you want to do with your time? There are more pressing questions like, what's the meaning of life? Now we're getting into some really tricky weeds here. So to me, again, inserting my own philosophy, the meaning of life is what we make it. It's entirely up to us. And that is a very uncomfortable position for a lot of people, because if your meaning to life is left to your wishes and desires, well, you have to remember that we have to work within the society that we're in, right? I'm not saying to be liberated from all of the bounds of the rules and everything. That's not what I mean. We have to be the best people we can be in this lifetime. So we have to make our own meaning. We have to endeavor to be a better person. If that is your goal, if you want to be better at playing guitar or mathematics or building a better telescope, you have to give your life meaning. And that's really uncomfortable and hard for a lot of people. They want to hang on to that security blanket. Well, my meaning of life is to sit by the side of God, and I have to accept Jesus to do that. Or fill in the blank. Like, I have to reach a certain level of enlightenment through meditation so that I can be reincarnated in the next step up in this caste system, right? There are all these fancy ideas that give life meaning, but they don't make sense to me. So I don't know. That was a long rant. What do you think? What's on your mind?
Yeah, like I see exactly where you're coming from. It's like a rabbit hole essentially, if you know what I mean. Once you get started, it just goes down, and it's like never ending essentially because it's this constant what ifs, and you'll never have anything certain just following that track. And I've been told before that, of course, like I said, I was Presbyterian, so a lot of people never really considered me Christian anyway, because a lot only consider Orthodox or the Catholic Church true Christians. Besides that, they were like, have you ever had Jesus or God talk to you? Have you ever had a relationship? I'm like, no, honestly. And if you want to bring that question up, I'm like, if you want me to try and convert back to Christian and fully believe that, I want some answers on why the hell he designed me the way I am. Because with my anxiety, with my ADHD, I live a life of self-doubt constantly and can't make a single decision, and it's the worst thing ever. And having to wake up every morning, same routine, same shit, it gets old and it gets tiring. I'm like, this is suffering. And they go, oh, well, it's to test your faith. I'm like, if the point to test my faith is to make me suffer, then I want no part of it. I don't at all. Because
Right.
then that's
Yeah.
unfair to me to try and prove a point.
Just remember
And
that
I have a friend,
uh,
and
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, you
she.
have a friend.
Oh yeah, my bad. Yeah. She has like several diseases and stuff, and I've known her for a few years now. She was actually my diving instructor. We got really close, and I'm like, if if he's real, then what? And she has to suffer with that. It doesn't make any logical sense. It's unfair to let stuff like that run rampant just to test faith or just because there's evil. If he was all knowing and all controlling, he should have been able to stop this. It shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, it's hard to look at the horrors of the world and then pretends that there's an all-loving God that created us for some purpose. It just doesn't make sense to me either. That was one of the first parts of my, well, I never really, it's not easy. You may struggle from time to time. And sometimes there are no answers. And I'm sorry to say that there's no answer to some of these questions, but it's a practice in becoming comfortable in your ignorance. It's a good thing. I can say confidently that I don't have these anxieties and this sense of dread, not knowing, because I have trained myself to be comfortable in my ignorance. And there's some things that we will always be forever ignorant to. But if it is something that you can learn, like if you endeavor to, again, learn how to play the guitar or the flute, or learn the rules of logic or epistemology, or learn how to speed read, like you have to set your own goals. It's something that you can achieve, you can learn, you can know, right? And that is it's a way to distract you from the dread of the uncertainty. And that's an important, like, escapism is a good thing from time to time. I play video games so much that it's having a negative effect on my life, then it's okay. It's a healthy form of escapism. But like anything, any vice, you have to use moderation. You have to use a certain level of self-control. Otherwise, we can get lost in vices like drugs, alcohol, video games, you name it, anything like adrenaline. I had a guest on earlier that told us his story about being addicted to adrenaline. And when you're skydiving or driving motorcycles or rock climbing, right? You get this adrenaline rush and it's intoxicating. And that could be a motivation for your life. And if you don't use moderation, it can be damaging and hurtful. So it's all about moderation, being comfortable in your ignorance. And again, ignorance isn't a bad word. It's just not knowing something because A, you were never taught or even thought about it. You're in a pre-contemplative state. Or B, there are no answers. There are literally no answers. There's no way to know. It's just a concept that can never be answered. Like what happened before the Big Bang? Well, before is a concept that doesn't work when time equals 0, right? We will never know. And you just have to try to train yourself to be comfortable in not knowing. That's my best advice.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, so, like I do diving, I do scuba diving, I do free diving. So I get that adventure adrenaline rush thing. So because those are two things that are extremely fucking dangerous. Part of my language, extremely dangerous. But I do it to get away from that, to get myself out of that place into a place where I don't need to think about it, and I just think about what I'm doing in the moment, and it does help. And I'm slowly working on doing it while I'm not. When times that I can't dive, I try and do that balance between video games and stuff as well.
Yeah.
But Uh, I had a train of thought going and it just crashed.
It's all good.
But yeah, so yeah, like I said, I do all that adrenaline rush stuff. I enjoy it. That's what I use to escape, and it's just something I know personally. It's just I know it's gonna take some time. I know with moderation, it will take some time getting used to it, and then going with that. We don't know, and just accepting uncertainty as a thing. Because like
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, every time they bring me that argument where they go like, well, I can't answer. That's something I leave up to whatever happened. I won't know unless we get a time machine. We'll never know.
That's right. Maybe one day, maybe we will have a form. Well, we do have a form of a time machine in a sense. The James Webb Telescope allows us to see into the past, right? This light, this information is so far away that we're seeing it as it was in the past, and that is a amazing concept. Yeah, just take your time with it. Say I don't know when you don't know. Just be honest, and that's the best thing we can do, right? Well, thank you. Any final thoughts before you go, or anything else we can talk about, or was that pretty much it for now?
I think I have something. Hold on, yeah. Sorry, this is my just ADHD brain kicking in. Once I lose a train of thought, it becomes a pain in the RC just trying to get it back on track.
Oh, I hear you. That's why I always have a pad of paper and a pen next to me when I'm doing these lives. Just write it down.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm just at work, so I'm like, I'm a delivery driver, so I'm taking advantage of being in my car and using that to do.
Yeah, well, don't TikTok and drive, please. Please, please do not TikTok
I'm
and
off the road
drive.
right now. We're dead. I'm off the road. I'm sitting in my car in the
Good.
parking lot.
Good to hear. Yeah, it
But
infuriates me when I see people driving and recording a TikTok video. Yeah,
oh
it
god,
makes my blood boil. I will comment and then report the video. I don't care I don't care how important your thought is. Hit the record button. You dumb dumb.
yeah.
Jeez, this how
Oh,
bad. So please, everyone, drive safe. He really sucked at catching the ball. Yeah. And then did you see him throw the ball? He threw that ball really good. Yeah, he threw the ball really good. That's it. That's every sports commentator ever. We had a guest. I must have insulted them. uh, I like playing some sports. You know, I actually watch. I used to watch offshore ocean racing because I'm a sailor. So I can put myself in that position, right? I can be in the boat when the waves are crashing over the bow and stuff, and that's exciting to me. But watching some dude throw a funny shaped ball, or it's I'd much rather read a book about religion or philosophy. All right. I'll probably wrap up the live pretty soon. So, last chance to get your thoughts in. There's nobody in the guest box right now, so here's your opportunity. Share your thought. Convince me God's real, or we can talk about sports and I can kick you off. Hey, I love football. Hey, you can love football all day long. I just wish that the teachers were paid as much as the athletes, right? Why do we have so much money wrapped up in these sports? Meanwhile, our education systems are crumbling. That's the kind of stuff that makes me mad. right? If we could pay our teachers as much as we pay our athletes, imagine how much better we'd be off. But instead, sports sells. Can't even think. What's your thought on Buddhism? I think that, so I actually studied Buddhism for quite a while when I was a kid, and I wanted to learn, what it is and how it works. And I'm going to call it a religion, even though it's not really a religion. It's arguably a religion. I think Buddhism as a religion can be used for harm. We can see examples in history of Buddhists causing terrorist acts, right? But the concept of self-reflection, meditation, self-enlightenment, I love it. All of that is useful. I think meditating is a useful skill to learn. But when you start adding on reincarnation and the caste system and all that mumbo jumbo, you lose me at that point. I got into martial arts through Eastern philosophy. Yeah, I studied Muay Thai Taekwondo when I was a kid, and I got my first black belt when I was 16 years old. And then from there, I did judo, jujitsu, and a little bit of ninjutsu when I was in college, but then I couldn't really afford it anymore. But yes, having that synergy between practicing martial arts and studying Eastern philosophy and religion, it's a good endeavor. I think it was worth my time and effort. So I'm a fan. Traditional karate here. Only purple belt. Still good. It's still good. Manhandle a bunch of sweaty dudes in uniform. Not just dudes, but anyone, right? So there was a little bit of a, all right, I'm done wrestling mentality. I became a pacifist. I know how to handle myself in a situation, and that's useful. I know how to fall. Learning how to fall. Imagine being trained how to fall. It's an incredibly useful skill. I use it from time to time when I slip on the ice or crash a motorcycle, right? I think I'm better off knowing how my body works and how I can react. That's all good stuff. 5 years boxing. Yeah, I'd rather not get punched in the head over and over, but hey, it's any sport where you're being active in a healthy way is good. All that is good. Yeah, I love you too. Enjoy Star Wars chess game. Pieces did attack and animations. Oh yeah, that was a good scene. Um, Great talking to you too. Always. It's my pleasure. I wouldn't be doing this show if I wasn't philosophically engaged by this conversation. I think it's fun spreading skepticism. It's a good thing. It's rewarding for me. I'm sure that I educate some people. I know that I do through the DMs and your comments and reactions. But I also recognize that I'm not going to convince everyone. That's an impossibility. Most of the time, if I'm having a conversation with someone who disagrees, we will not change each other's minds. It's just part of how humans are. When we debate, we become more rigid in our personal philosophy, idea, and concepts. And it's very rare that I can talk someone out of their belief in the moment. But having the opportunity to share these ideas, these concepts of pre-contemplation. What is a logical syllogism? What is deductive or inductive reasoning? These things, again, are taught skills. We learn through monkey see, monkey do, right? Here's a big list of books that you can read. Must destroy your own ego. Yeah, truth. All right, final thoughts. I'm going to shut the live down. We don't have any more guests. I'm getting a little tired. So only 4 o'clock, but I should really go vacuum the house or do something. I need to go. But Rome wasn't built in a day, but it takes time. Just skepticism when you can, and just be patient with it. Choose your battles wisely. If you're not in a good, safe position to start arguing with your mom or dad about the nature of reality, then don't start a fight. Don't start tension where it doesn't need to be. So do the best you can.